You've probably heard of bacteria before. After all, bacteria cells get a bad rap for causing all sorts of diseases. But these small cells not only come in different shapes and sizes, such as a sphere, rod, or spiral cones, they have different purposes as well. There are actually many good bacteria that help you survive, such as the lactobacillus bacteria that helps you digest your food. But there are also many harmful bacteria that cause disease, such as the ones that cause cholera and syphilis. Most harmful bacteria that we come into contact with do not actually cause us harm because of the protection of our immune system. So now we know some basics on bacteria, but we haven't answered the big question: do bacteria cells have a nucleus? To answer that question, we should first determine what type of cells bacteria are. There are two classifications that all cells fit into: eukaryotic or prokaryotic. Eukaryotic cells, or eukaryotes, are larger, more complicated cells that make up plants and animals. Prokaryotic cells, or prokaryotes, are smaller, simpler cells that make up most single-celled organisms. The major difference is that eukaryotic cells have a nucleus and other membrane-bound organelles. Prokaryotic cells lack most organelles, namely the nucleus, which contains genetic information and controls everything that goes on in the cell. Bacteria cells are prokaryotes, which means they do not have many of the organelles that eukaryotic cells have. Therefore, and most importantly, bacteria cells do not have a nucleus. They only contain the following organelles: cell membrane for protection, cell wall for stability, ribosomes for protein production, and cytoplasm for organelle housing. So the nucleus is like the brain of your cell. It controls what the cell does and informs organelles how to do their jobs, all while housing genetic information called DNA. What does that mean for bacteria, which do not have a nucleus? The DNA in a bacteria is not protected inside the nucleus. Instead, it floats around freely inside the cell in a loosely coiled circular shape in the nucleoid. The nucleoid is an odd-shaped region with no membrane to surround the DNA, unlike a nucleus. There is also DNA present in plasmids, or small circles of DNA that carry extra information for the bacterial cell that is not necessary for survival. These plasmids can be gained or lost and given to other bacteria. Because bacterial DNA is not located inside a nucleus, the process of making proteins all happens right in the cytoplasm, the gooey substance that fills the cell. In eukaryotic cells, copies of DNA have to be made in the nucleus. Then they have to be sent outside the nucleus to give directions to the ribosomes on how to make proteins. In bacteria, this copy is made right in cytoplasm, where it can easily find the ribosomes. Bacteria are considered to be prokaryotes, which means they do not have a nucleus and other membrane-bound organelles. Instead, the DNA is found in the nucleoid, a region with no membrane, or as a plasmid, a small circle of extra genetic information floating right in cytoplasm, the fluid that fills the cell. This means copies of the DNA do not need to leave the nucleus to find ribosomes to make proteins.